When you hear the name Alexander the Great, it's easy to picture this almost mythical figure, right? One man who, in just over a decade, managed to build one of the biggest empires the world had ever seen. We're talking about a territory stretching all the way from the Balkans to the Himalayas. It's just legendary stuff.
And I mean, just try to wrap your head around the scale of it. His empire sprawled across 3 different continents. He was ruling over tens of millions of people. And this wasn't some slow, plodding conquest that took generations. No, this was a lightning-fast campaign that completely redrew the map of the ancient world.
So, that gets you to the big question, doesn't it? Was this really all down to the genius and charisma of one person, or was there something more, something systematic at play? Well, in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the legend. We're going to deconstruct the sophisticated, finely tuned military system that was the real engine behind his unstoppable conquest.
So here's how we'll do it. First, we'll look at the absolute basics, the men and their weapons. Then we'll see how he put those pieces together into his signature battlefield strategy. We'll watch that strategy get pushed to its absolute limit, and then we'll dive into the hidden genius of his logistics. Finally, we'll wrap it all up by looking at the legacy he left behind.
All right, let's get into it. Every incredible army in history starts with the fundamentals, its soldiers and the gear they carry. Now, Alexander inherited a pretty solid professional army from his dad, Philip II, but he's the one who honed it into something truly special. Right at the heart of his army's power was a major technological upgrade, the Sarissa. This thing was a pike that could be up to 22 feet long. I mean, that's more than twice the length of the standard Greek spear, the Doru. Now, you needed 2 hands to use it, which meant the soldiers couldn't carry the big, heavy shields and had to wear lighter armor. But that trade-off? It was a total game changer.
See, because of the Sarissa, the Macedonians could create their unique phalanx. Just picture it, a block of soldiers, 16 men deep, packed so tight that the spear points from the first 5 rows all stick out in front. What you get is this terrifying, almost unstoppable wall of sharp steel, a real hedgehog. This formation was the unbreakable anvil of his entire army.
So if the phalanx was the anvil, then the companion cavalry, the heteroi, they were the hammer. These guys were the best of the best. We're talking elite, heavy cavalry armed with a nasty lance called the yixton. And unlike most cavalry back then who were used for scouting or harassing the enemy, the companions had one job: charge straight into the enemy line in a wedge formation and just shatter it.
Okay, so you've got these incredible pieces on the chessboard, this immovable block of infantry, and a cavalry force that hits like a freight train. But the real genius is in how you use them together. Alexander perfected a system of combined arms that let him beat armies that were way, way bigger than his own, time and time again.
Let's walk through his signature play. Step 1 is the anvil. The phalanx moves up, makes contact with the main enemy force, and just pins them there. Now the enemy is stuck, completely focused on this wall of spears in front of them. Then comes step 2, the hammer. Alexander, leading the charge himself, spots a weak point and smashes into it with his companion cavalry. And then boom, step 3, the shatter. The cavalry breaks through, chaos erupts, and the phalanx just rolls forward, cleaning up the now trapped and panicked enemy. It was simple, and it was brutal.
And you can't overlook the psychological side of this. Alexander wasn't sitting in a tent somewhere giving orders. No, he was leading that hammer charge. Imagine the effect that has on your own troops' morale. And then think about the other side. The Persians see their king, Darius, turn and run from that charge. It was a weapon in and of itself.
Now, every great system has to be tested, right? And for Alexander, the final exam came at the Battle of Gaugamela. This is where he went up against the Persian army that just massively outnumbered his, especially in the one area that was absolutely critical to his whole strategy, the cavalry. I mean, just look at these numbers. It's not even close. The Persians had almost 5 times more cavalry, and that posed a massive threat. It meant they could just ride around his flanks, get in behind his army, and attack from the rear. His whole hammer and anvil tactic was suddenly incredibly vulnerable.
So what does Alexander do? He innovates right there on the battlefield. He comes up with this brilliant solution. He arranges his army in what was basically a hollow square, a box formation. He had a whole second line of infantry facing backward, specifically to deal with anyone trying to outflank him. It was like a defensive shell designed to protect his offensive core.
So here's the play-by-play. Alexander starts by moving his army forward, but at an angle, kind of drifting to the right.
This baits the Persian cavalry on the left to ride out and meet him, and as they do, it stretches their own line thin, and a gap opens up right near their center. Well, that's the moment he was waiting for. Alexander immediately wheels his companion cavalry and charges like a thunderbolt straight into that gap, making a beeline for Darius himself. And just like before, Darius flees, the Persian command falls apart, and the battle is over. Genius.
But look, winning amazing battles is one thing. Keeping an army marching and fighting for years on end, across thousands of miles, that is a whole other level of challenge. And this is where we find Alexander's most overlooked and maybe his most profound form of genius, his mastery of logistics.
There's an old military saying that fits perfectly here. Because really, an army marches on its stomach. Alexander's army marched farther and faster than pretty much any army before it. So how on earth did he pull it off?
Well, he started by making his army incredibly lean and mean. He got rid of the slow, clumsy ox carts. Instead, every soldier basically became his own pack mule, carrying something like 80 pounds of their own gear and food. He timed his campaigns to line up with local harvests so they could forage, and he would often split his army into smaller groups so they wouldn't just suck one area completely dry of resources.
And he supported this lean army with a super sophisticated supply chain. He has scouts for intel, specialists called bemedists who could pace out distances with incredible accuracy, and he always tried to stick near the coast so his navy could bring in supplies. But maybe the most brilliant part, he founded over 70 new cities, all named Alexandria, of course, to act as permanent supply depots and military bases, securing his lines as he pushed deeper and deeper into enemy territory.
So when you put it all together, the cutting-edge weapons, the brilliant tactics, the inspiring leadership, and the revolutionary logistics, you start to see the bigger picture. Alexander wasn't just a conqueror. He was an architect, the architect of a whole new way of waging war.
Let's just break it down one last time with these 4 pillars. You've got superior technology, with the Syriza giving him an edge in any infantry fight. You've got tactics, like the hammer and anvil, a masterful use of combined arms. You've got logistics, this lean army model that gave him incredible speed and endurance. And finally, you've got his personal leadership, which inspired his men to follow him anywhere.
And that's really the key takeaway here. Alexander's most lasting legacy wasn't the empire itself, which crumbled pretty quickly after he died. It was the blueprint he created for conquest. It was this complete, scalable system of war that was studied and copied by some of the greatest generals in history, from Julius Caesar all the way up to Napoleon.
Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We love to celebrate that one heroic charge, that single moment of battlefield brilliance. But maybe what Alexander really teaches us is that true, history-altering genius isn't about the single flash of inspiration. Maybe it's about the patient, meticulous, and absolutely relentless design of a system that is simply built to win.